Occult Confessions is brought to you commercial-free through the generous support of our patrons. Visit occultconfessions.com and click on Donate to help keep the history of the occult on the digital airwaves. The barrier to entry for Kabbalah is quite high. The system is complex, more or less by design, with philosophers developing separate but interrelated systems that feature through lines but also significant points of departure from century to century. Despite the focus of our show, which is to introduce various schools of belief, mysticism, magic, and other third ways of knowing to you, the listener, I have avoided covering Kabbalah because of that barrier to entry. I have done this, for those of you who are keeping track, for 7 years. I've wondered in part whether the complexity can be translated into a meaningful introduction. But today, I will endeavor, at last, to do just that. The medieval and Renaissance Kabbalists, with their concern for the mystical dimensions of numbers, would likely appreciate that I have waited 7 years to cover their philosophy and practice. In any event, here we go. Today on Occult Confessions, Kabbalah. My name is Dr. Robert C. Thompson. If you have an issue with how I'm pronouncing Kabbalah or anything else today, kindly write yourself an email expressing your rage. I am joined by Julian Dobbs, our druid in residence.
Hello.
What's up, Julian? Last time we heard from you, you were doing the voice of Ramalinga Swamigo.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you're doing just some talking.
I love talking.
All right, talking's good. Savannah Barrett is here to make sense of this as well. She's
Is that my job?
you're our resident everyman in matters of... As things get more esoteric, I feel more of a need to bring you in to just be like, wait, stop.
Go
What?
back.
I'm glad I can play that role.
That's an important role today. You got a lot of work to do, I think.
No.
I mean, we'll find out. I tried to process this for people, but we will find out. Okay, let's pledge it out. We the members of the secret order of alchemical actors do solemnly commit ourselves to a full and honest telling of the history of the occult as far as we know it. Make a noise, Julian, to open those patrons and reviews. Ooh, all right then. We have a handful of folks to thank. That was a little bit, yeah, halfway there. A handful of folks to thank for joining us. Very generous, especially in the summertime. Summertime is a slow time for us. We thank all our patrons who've been able to hang in with us, and all the folks who have joined us. We have Matt A. and Anika, Emotional Bagel,
It's my favorite kind of bagel.
Ray of effing sunshine, and it is effing. There's no curse words in there. Maybe Patreon won't allow that. I don't know. Artful Decay and Dave B. Welcome, friends. Thank you so much. We
Welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll close that up, Julian, with another sound. Okay. All right, then. Today's episode takes its structure and inspiration in large part from Gershom Shalem's excellent account of Kabbalah. It is called Kabbalah, a definitive history of the evolution and ideas, leading figures, and extraordinary influence of Jewish mysticism. I will say it is not an easy book. It dates to 74, so it's not a new book, but it is pretty comprehensive, and it's just very well done text. So I recommend it to you if you listen to this and you want to know more, but you don't want to start reading the primary texts we're going to mention. I want to remind you that this episode is intended as an introduction to the history and philosophy of Kabbalah, and so we are necessarily going to have to simplify some very complex points in order to keep things moving. Again, just write a strongly worded email to yourself if none of this goes down well for you. Here we go. The history of Kabbalah. Kabbalah has its origins in the first days of rabbinic Judaism. The Jewish philosopher Philo, who lived at the time of Jesus of Nazareth, by the way, observed the existence of a sect of worshippers who had a mystical understanding of the Torah as a living body. This text, the biblical text, was alive.
like a person? I mean, like
kind of like a person.
It was a person, or the book itself was alive?
Yes, that it had a life to it.
Oh, okay. So that it wasn't like an actual person.
No, it wasn't a guy walking around. No, but the text was alive. The first millennium saw the development of Merkabah mysticism, better known as chariot mysticism. I don't know if it's better known, but it means chariot mysticism. Reference to visions of the throne-based chariot of God, which was derived in part from Ezekiel, the prophet who saw a chariot pulled by angelic creatures with 4 wings, the faces of a man, a lion, an ox, and a griffin vulture. Yeah, always beating those griffin vultures off my car. Get out of here, griffin vultures.
They had all those faces?
Well, different faces. 4 guys.
There was 4 guys, and each of them had a different face.
It's too many faces, I agree.
Yeah.
The Merkabah tradition often featured apocalyptic writing and visions of the throne of God, as in the Book of Enoch. The Merkabah were famously esoteric, with various warnings attributed to their mystical practices. Only the most learned and careful scholars could read Merkabah literature or seek visions of the chariot. Even the Song of Songs was forbidden until the reader was mature enough to handle the esoteric meanings of the text. Overlapping Merkabah was Hekalat, or Palace's literature. Again, I am not good at pronouncing things. There are so many words in this episode. It's a little bit like our Ramalinga Swamigal episode. So just, be kind. Mock me in my Discord. You are welcome to do that. But please, be kind. I'm trying. The Haikalat Rabbati suggests that, which was a book, suggests that practitioners put their head between their knees and recite ecstatic hymns in order to induce an altered state of consciousness to receive visions.
Interesting.
Any of you guys do that ever?
No.
Makes me
missing out.
I guess maybe because the blood's rushing to your head.
I think it does work. Yeah, I think it can work for you. Yeah. It was a common thing to do apparently back in the day. I mean, way back in the day.
What?
I mean, Jewish mystics got up to some of this business. We're still not in the Kabbalah, by the way. This is pre-Kabbalah. We're sticking our head between our knees and chanting, hymning, singing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Geonic. Sure. Okay. We accept it. Accept it. Geonic literature.
Who am I to judge people?
Right. We'll try it later.
Weirder things.
Geonic literature from the 6th through the 11th centuries came out of Babylonia, following the completion of the Talmud, which happened in the 6th century. At this time, the Geonim, based in Babylon, served as spiritual and judicial authorities for all Jews. We call them the Geonim. These writers added the ideas of gematria and the transmigration of souls to nascent Kabbalistic philosophy. Transmigration is the belief that a soul can move between beings at death.
Oh.
So it's not like a rebirth. It's like
you go into a frog or something.
Yeah.
Or like another
you just
guy.
kind of like possess something else.
Yeah, you go into some lady's womb.
What? Wait.
Your soul moves. And could be a baby.
Oh, okay.
But it could also just be
but does it
adult human?
Could be a bag of potato chips. You don't know what's going to happen.
That's like the They Might Be Giant songs.
Well, now, see, this song,
I like that song.
You've been pondering over this song for some time. Now I have the solution
that's the
for you.
Birdhouse in Your Soul song, and I still don't understand. But
sorry.
they have a song called Dead that says, I returned as a bag of groceries that expired. That's like the song. It's good.
Maybe we will figure out the Birdhouse in Your Soul today.
Yeah, so what Rob is referencing is there was a day where I listened to the song by They Might Be Giants called Put a Birdhouse in Your Soul. And I came to Rob and I said, I have a very important question for you. Why does the band They Might Be Giants want me to put a birdhouse in my soul? And he couldn't answer it.
I had nothing.
And he still can't answer it.
Maybe
I'm
today.
going to try.
And honestly, it came on in my car last night on my way home. And I was like, I don't know why they want me to put a birdhouse in my soul.
Well, you better hurry up and do it, and then you'll know.
But where I was going with this question,
yes.
That before we got into all this.
Oh, with transmigration.
Yes. It's not like, it's not like reincarnation where you're a new being, but what if about the frog soul? Or what about this other person's soul? Did you boot it out?
It's the wheel of souls, so it is more like reincarnation. Does that make you feel better?
So it's not like I'm kicking someone else's soul out of a body.
There is possession. You can become possessed is my experience of Kabbalah, but it's not a common feature of it. And in this particular geonic literature, we're really just talking about souls moving at death as part of a reincarnation process.
Okay. So, but they're becoming like a new, being.
Yes, to correct your past mistakes.
Okay.
So maybe a frog will do it best for you.
But you start out as like a tadpole, right?
Right. Well, you didn't want to jump, and now you're going to have to.
No, I mean, but do you know what I mean? Like you're reborn as a tadpole. Like you don't become an adult frog.
Oh, right. Okay, all right. I see that. I get it. Yes, you are an egg.
Okay. You become a tadpole.
Or
and then you
like I said, the womb. You go to the womb.
You go to the womb and then you rebirth.
And then you're born as this thing. And
I feel like the way you said it implied that
it was like you just go into like an adult.
I don't want to say that you can't ever do that, but
I died one day and then I just jumped in the Frank.
Right, the potato chips, but they were newly manufactured. Gematria is the ascription of numbers to letters and words to discover secret links between sacred names and texts. So, we would say the letter A is 1, letter B is 2. And if you, add up all the numeric values of the letters in a word, and they are the same as the numeric values of another word, then that means those words have something to do with each other that's secretly hidden.
Interesting.
Oh. Yeah, do you
so
see
it's
what
like
I mean?
The Chinese number sort of thing.
Gematria, yeah. It's the Jewish version thereof. The 11th century onward saw the rise of Hasidism. The Hasids were men who followed a distinct way of life. That's sort of literally what Hasid means. Or at least that's how it was used in the medieval period, is what I'm trying to say. Today, we think of the Hasids as a particular sect of Judaism. The Hasidei Ashkenaz was a strict ascetic movement and held believers to the standard not only of traditional Jewish laws, but also of an unwritten law in heaven. So you got your Torah and you got your 10 Commandments and, all the dietary laws and stuff. Right. And then these guys say, oh, wait a second, though.
There's a secret one.
There's a secret that we also follow that's more than that.
Whoa.
Yeah, mystical stuff.
Yeah, more
esoteric
rules. That's what I want.
They love rules.
Give me more rules in my religion, please.
These Hasids often aroused violent opposition for this exact reason. Nobody wants more rules. And it was part of their doctrine that they were intended to. So basically, the Hasids said, if nobody's pissed off by you, you are doing it wrong.
Oh.
Huh.
Yeah. These Hasids spent a great deal of time on seeking associations through Gematria. Okay, now we get to our very first Kabbalah. So all that stuff is before we even get to Kabbalah. Isaac the Blind, or Rabbi Isaac of Much Light. He's our first guy.
Of much light?
Of much light.
Of much light. Not of little light, or many lights. Much light.
Okay.
He's considered to be one of, if not the very first writer on Kabbalah. Although, with so many medieval topics, this is a subject of debate. We can't be confident. Isaac and his school are attributed with applying the word Kabbalah as we understand it today. So they basically coined the term. I think it was in use, but Kabbalah, as it describes the specific set of beliefs that we're going to spend the rest of this episode talking about, that's a new thing with him. He's the first guy to say, this is Kabbalah. Speech for Isaac is connected with its source, divine speech, and all language is derived from the divine name of God. So you have the name of God, and then you have all the divine speech that comes out of the name of God, and then you have us talking. All these speeches connect back up to God. The son of a Talmudic scholar, Abraham ben David, Isaac lived in Provence at the turn of the 12th into the 13th century. Some scholars attribute the Book of Bahir to him, which was a Kabbalistic text attributed to the 1st century Rabbi Nehunya. So, in other words, Rabbi Nehunya in the 1st century did not write this book. It was definitely, or most probably, written in the medieval period by a guy. But he kind
of brought it back.
Well, Isaac the Blind may have ascribed it to Rabbi Nehunya. So the book arguably includes large fragments of an earlier work, but it was compiled at least in the 13th century when Isaac the Blind was living. And he just said, okay, the rabbi wrote it. Rabbi Nehunya. This was a common thing in the medieval period. You would ascribe your text to a more famous, more ancient writer to get people to care about
Be
your
like,
ideas.
oh, I like this.
Oh.
Yeah.
Should we start doing that? Being like, oh, Shakespeare wrote this.
Shakespeare
about
wrote
our
today's
place.
episode.
Yeah.
All of Julian's commentary today comes from Einstein.
True.
The book arguably includes large fragments. Oh, I said this. The book first attributed the 10 Sephirot to attributes or emanations of God. The earlier Sefer Yetzirah, or Book of Creation, which may or may not be a work of Kabbalah and may have been written shortly before or long before the lifetime of Isaac the Blind. A lot of haziness in these old manuscripts. This book, the Sefer Yetzirah, connected the Sephirot with numbers. The Sephirot are the 10 emanations of God, is a kind of like easy way to articulate them. If you've ever seen all the circles, the tree with all the circles, there's 10 circles.
Yeah.
Like a circle on the top, and then there's 2 lines, and there's a bottom one. They have the Hebrew writing inside of them. And
No.
there's a tree behind them. No? Or maybe a man. Sometimes there's a picture of a man.
I don't think I have.
But you've heard of the concept of God having these like commanding angels. The Sephirot are a little bit like this. They're not like the archangels. They're not Michael and all these guys. The Sephirot are the closest supernatural emanations of God. There's 10 of them. But you just need to understand that, I guess, and you can keep going.
So God has 10 commanding people? Sorry.
They're not... No, you're good. This is what you're here for. They're not people. They are spiritual archetypes / entities, depending on who you talk to.
Okay.
And they are the immediate first steps of creation.
Okay.
Creation emanates from God, and these 10
Things help try and
yes.
put it together.
Okay.
Yes, they're there before we get to us.
Okay.
We're down below them.
Okay.
So far, so good.
Sure.
So, that's the Sephirot. So, the book we're talking about, what the heck's it called again? The Sefer Yetzirah, Book of Creation, is one of the first to say that the Sephirot are attached to particular numbers, and we love numbers in Kabbalah. The Sefer Yetzirah was first printed in 1562, but it was an inspiration for many earlier works in manuscript form. It's ascribed to Rabbi Akiva, who's a legendary first-century philosopher and writer of Mishnah and Midrash types of Jewish theology. And also to the biblical patriarch Abraham. So both of these people are supposed to have written it. Probably neither of them did. This book argued that God created the world through 32 secret paths of wisdom. We love numbers. All the beings in the 3 strata of creation came into being through the combination of 22 letters in 231 gates. 22 Hebrew letters that when you combine them, like you can make 231 combinations. We love numbers.
Jesus.
Love numbers.
A lot of math.
No, not Jesus.
No Jesus here.
We don't need Jesus. Who was a Jew? Who was a Jew? So that's... Maybe he can come.
True. And he wasn't white.
All these things. Just side facts for today's episode. The practical magical creation of the golem tied back to this book, as the magician was instructed to recite all the possible 3-letter combinations in order to make a golem come to life. So this is a popular trope of Jewish magic, that you could create a golem and make the golem of Prague, right? All these sorts of legends.
That would take a long time.
You'd be reciting for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to make a golem in Minecraft.
No.
So.
Just need some copper.
Video games do simplify. If creation came into being through letters, the logic holds, then letters could spawn further creation. That's how we create the golem, right? So language, words, speech is the vehicle by which things were created. So we can use it to create more. The creation of the world at its 6 extremities was then sealed with the 6 combinations of the letters of the name of God. That is Yod, He, Vav, or elsewhere Yod, He, Vav, He, Yahweh, Y-H-W-H. In Hebrew, Yod, He, Vav, He. Those are the 4 letters of God. So we add vowels in Yahweh. You know what I'm talking about? The Jewish name of God, or the Old Testament name of God, Yahweh.
I've heard that, yes.
Colbert, when he had his Better show, the Colbert Report, he used to do this segment on religion that he called Yahweh or No Way. He'd like argue about whether or not God actually held this, that, or the other thing. But Yahweh, being the old name of God, is not really God's name. It's Yod He Vav He. It's
the 4 letters.
The 4 letters are at God's name.
See.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But even in Kabbalah, those letters aren't even really God's name. God's got all these names. Anyway, secret names. There's so many names.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, he's not supposed to be this, like, tangible being.
We shouldn't be able to pronounce his name, just like regular guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Significantly expanding on the concept of the Sephirot, the Book of the Bahir, remember we were talking about that?
Yes.
Attributed to Isaac the Blind, said that the creation proceeded from the first Sephirah to intelligence and wisdom, and from these 3, the 7 inferior Sephirot emerged. So we started with 3, and then 7 came below them. The Sephirot as emanations of God, and the nature and order of creation would be steady concerns for Kabbalists ever afterward. We'll discuss them later. Whether or not Isaac the Blind composed the Book of the Bahir, we can be fairly certain that he did run a Kabbalistic school. So even if he didn't write this book, he was probably practicing and teaching Kabbalah. We know this because he taught a system of meditation on the Sephirot, which blended the meditator's thought with the divine thought, and he had a student who went on to write extensively about Kabbalah. That student was Azrael of Gerona. Azrael is credited with the principle of Ein Sof. Now, hang with me. Let's not worry about the Sephirot for a minute. We're going to talk about the passive, infinite essence of God as source of being. Aristotle, following Aristotle, Azrael reasoned that nothing comes from nothing. Therefore, God must have existed at all time for the universe to exist. This is an Aristotelian point.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
God contained all potential existence, sort of like coal contains the potential to catch fire, and creation was the transformation of that potential into actuality. So God, as Ein Sof, is sitting around in space, occupying infinity, and then God undergoes or chooses to emanate creation.
Okay.
And then creation happens.
Here we are. Mm-hmm. Since God...
That's a crazy concept to think of.
Yeah.
I mean, when you dwell on, when you try to logically process God, that's what the Kabbalists, I think, are mostly doing, is trying to logically process the concept of God.
Yeah.
And then it naturally, smashes into mysticism because there's a limit to which logic can process God. Mm-hmm. It's a common medieval problem. We're going to return to this over and over again this series. So, here I am doing the Kabbalah. Couldn't get away with not doing it this time. Since God is perfect and the created world is imperfect, God could not have created the world directly. He needed an intermediary. The intermediary, say it with me now, were the 10 Sephirot.
Ah, I see.
For God to remain perfect, God must emanate the Sephirot, which are then responsible for emanating creation. That creates a divide between God and creation.
I see, but also, why wouldn't they be perfect if they came from God?
Or if they're imperfect, then God created an imperfect thing, and they would have to be imperfect to create us as imperfect. Mm-hmm. There's theological problems for sure. Yeah. I'm confident that if we went down into all these primary texts and dug around, there are potentially answers, but I also think it kind of sits there. It's sort of difficult to deal with these questions.
I agree.
So, this brings us to the text and the author most associated with Kabbalah. So we're going to move forward from Isaac the Blind to the Zohar of Moses de Leon, also known as the Book of Splendor. You have to say it like that.
I don't think I've ever heard the word splendor pronounced.
But you just did it so well.
No, exactly.
You did it perfectly just then.
No, I'm that's every time I hear that word, that's how it's said. You can't say it other than splendor.
Have we heard of the Zohar?
No,
this is the most famous text of Kabbalah. The Sefer HaSohar was written between 1280 and 1286 in Guadalajara. Themes in the Zohar included mythical imagery, the sexual symbolism of the relationships between the Sephirot, and to some extent also demonology and sorcery. The book is largely comprised of long and short midrashim of the Torah. We're going to get into all the books that have the midrashim. I have talked about midrash before on the show, but I'm not going to assume that you have heard all of my episodes before this point. Midrash is when generally Jewish scholars or rabbis take a good hard look at the Bible, find a contradiction, and then try to solve it by coming up with often lore. Midrash is fairly authoritative. Lilith is a product of Midrash.
Interesting.
So for those of you who have heard before, this will be a nice reminder, I think. Lilith is Adam's first wife. Why does Adam need a first wife? I thought it was Eve. Well, no. If you read Genesis, Genesis says that God created man and woman. And then Genesis goes on to say that God created man, waited a little while, and then created woman. So how could both things be true? How could God create man and woman together and then create them separately? It must be two different women. That's where Lilith comes from. And this is articulated in Midrash. A rabbi, a scholar, says, oh, this is the logical reason for this. And it becomes quite authoritative within the tradition, the Midrash, because otherwise we're stuck with the contradiction, which we sort of can't abide.
Yeah.
So these are very important texts. So the Zohar, what I want to say is, like, this is the medieval period. Like, a Midrash is generally quite ancient, like early rabbinical Judaism. The Zohar is much later, and Moses de Leon, he's apparently he's a talented writer, but he's also a bit like arrogant. Like he's just deciding he can write Midrash.
Ooh.
Yeah, he's just going for it, and he does it. I mean, you guys say that, but probably you would hold that it's okay for people to have their own, like, beliefs, right?
No, that's true.
So
that is
he's
true.
just writing down how he understands it, but he's doing it with the same authority as the rabbis of old.
Yeah.
It's like writing your own. It's like Joseph Smith.
Oh. Well, I think the context in which you said it also just sounds like, he sounds a bit arrogant.
Yeah,
he's doing this, like this. Yeah.
But from a Judaic perspective of the day, it would have that kind of quality to it.
Yeah.
But it was read. People really did take. It was loved. The Zohar, I think, was taken up pretty quickly, and people really liked it. Yeah,
Good for him.
So the Midrashim were on the Torah, the Song of Songs, Ruth, and Lamentations. It also explored the profundities of the nature of the divine. The Spanish rabbi de Leon, he was Spanish, Guadalajara, he claimed that he had copied the Zohar from the 2nd century rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. But most scholars doubt this today. It was, as we've observed before, common, as we just said, for authors to attribute their work to earlier, more famous thinkers to try and get their ideas heard and accepted. To that end, the Zohar also included the story of a gathering of Shimon ben Yochai's and his companions, where they discussed the mysteries of Jewish mysticism, and at which 3 of the attendees died ecstatically.
What?
Yeah, they just
They
saw
were so
God
happy.
and died. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I mean, this is probably fictional, but...
Oh, sorry.
So he's just like, I am Shimon, and I'm writing this book. And one day I was hanging out with my friends, and we ecstatically, communed with God, and 3 of these guys just kicked it. But it's just Moses writing about it. He's just making it up.
Interesting. So this oh my god, why am I saying this? Sorry, I'm just like, why am I interrupting?
Here we go.
I shouldn't interrupt to say this, but it just reminded me of The Sims, because in The Sims you can get so happy that you die.
You die. That's true.
That's weird and relevant and weird.
Yeah. And it sucks because they become so ecstatic, and you gotta hurry up and get them to the mirror and make themselves calm down, or they're gonna die.
Well, these guys didn't have a mirror, apparently.
If they had a mirror, they wouldn't have died.
Made it if they had just played a little Sims and knew how to deal with this. But that's basically what happened to them, yeah. So it's like that, people who play The Sims. There was also a description of the death of Shimon ben Yochai, and I love this. The discourse of the old man. wherein Reb Yaiva appears to Shimon's companions as a donkey driver and delivers a dissertation on the doctrine of the soul.
A donkey?
A donkey driver?
He's driving a donkey. He's just this old man driving a donkey, and he turns out to be this famous rabbi, and he gives a dissertation on the soul, and then I presume he continues to drive the donkey away.
Well, that's how I would want my news delivered to me,
About
I
the
think.
soul?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This guy who's just doing his work, driving donkeys.
Yeah, Rob, you
trust him.
gotta do that.
I got to drive some donkeys.
You gotta drive
I do
some
work.
donkeys.
I got to be honest around here. I am lifting these days around the theater. do a lot of heavy lifting. During and immediately
Yeah,
after,
he's the working man.
I'm a you were a working
Not
man.
just you, but like, yeah, the donkey driver.
Donkey
I
is.
appreciate that.
he comes.
He's just he's the everyman, just like me.
Right. He puts his pants on one leg at a time. There were 24 sections of the Zohar in all, with others known to medieval Kabbalists that are now completely lost. So there were probably more. During and immediately after de Leon's lifetime, writers circulated portions of the book, but never the whole thing as we understand it today. Over time, mystics began to collect the text together into manuscripts, and by the 15th century, manuscripts containing most but not all of the book appeared. The first two printed editions were published in Mantua and Cremona between 1558 and 1560. And that's 200 years later, but in all that intervening time, it has become a very highly influential text. The people are passing, like, I don't know, people used to pass recordings of the Grateful Dead. Like, remember, I don't know if you know this.
You said remember. As if
You guys were
remember,
there.
yeah.
People would record the Grateful Dead's jams, right, their live concerts, and then they would share them. So that's one example of how you could think about how these texts are being shared. They're in pieces, and people are just like passing the pieces around. It's like your buddies in your comic book collection, or when I was a kid, you would trade video games, that kind of thing.
Right.
The book is a bit confusing.
Well, considering that's how it was kind of put together.
Yeah.
Its sourcing is, I think, an issue of particular confusion insofar as some of its sources are entirely made up, and others make references to real sources but contain material exclusive to the Zohar. So it's a bit like, if I randomly said in the middle of this podcast, and now let me quote the Bible, and I said whatever I thought.
Yeah, that's strange.
Yeah. According to the Quran, and then I would just say,
Oh, no, okay.
yeah, then I might get in real trouble. De Leon published the book part by part rather than all at once. Isaac of Acre sought out the supposedly ancient source of the text, and he heard this story. There was a wealthy man in Avila, which is the last city where De Leon lived, who had offered to marry his son to De Leon's daughter after Moses de Leon had died, if his widow would give him the ancient manuscript from which Moses de Leon had copied out the Zohar. And de Leon's wife and daughter were like, nope, that doesn't exist. He just wrote it himself.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Finally, in the 16th century, we get to the last. We're just still doing the history here. We haven't even got to the major ideas.
No, well, yeah, I can clearly tell because I have no idea what we're talking about. So,
Well, just some guys writing some stuff at this point, so you're good.
I got that.
You got that there's guys, they're writing stuff.
They're writing
it's
stuff.
Funky stuff. God's around,
He's there,
doing things.
and then he made lesser beings of himself, and they made the universe.
Yeah, we're going to do that in a minute.
Oh, okay.
But you're off to a good start. In the 16th century, there was another big development, and this came in the form of Isaac Luria's teaching, which we call today, or at least in the 70s, Lurianic Kabbalah. Isaac Luria did not write much, but his oral teaching was written down by his disciples, sort of like Confucius, and he became deeply influential to future Kabbalists, or Jesus. Jesus didn't write the Gospels. It was those
Yes.
other guys.
Other guys wrote the Gospels for
Right?
him.
You didn't know that?
No, I got caught, but because you had already moved on, and then you said, or Jesus, and I was like, what? Where did Jesus fit into that?
We got to get him back in here.
Sorry.
Give him
Not
a
enough
place.
Jesus.
Did a little
I'd
of
already
that.
moved on to what you were next talking about, and you hopped back in
Sorry,
time.
I do that. I do that sometimes.
It's okay.
It was written down. Okay, so Luria's father received a vision before he was born that his wife would conceive a child who would reveal many mysteries of the Torah and expound upon the Zohar. Luria was born in 1534. His father died when he was very young, and he was raised by his maternal uncle Mordecai Francis, who placed him under the tutelage of some of the greatest Jewish thinkers of the day. He married his cousin, a daughter of Uncle Francis, and with his uncle's financial support was able to commit himself almost entirely to study. A pretty big luxury at the time.
Yeah.
He pored over the Zohar, which had only just recently been published, remember, and he meditated for 7 years on the banks of the Nile.
That's an important number, isn't it?
It is, yeah. That's how many years it's taken me to do this episode.
No, but isn't it like how long someone sat under a tree?
Well, it was 40 days for the Buddha.
Oh, never mind that.
But 7
I'm
is
completely wrong.
7 does have a lot of Kabbalistic meaning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't someone trapped in a desert for a certain amount of time?
It's 40 days and 40 minutes.
I'm sorry.
Jesus wandered the wilderness.
I'm not a good student.
Isn't it 7, Rob? But there are 7 days in a week.
That's true.
I think you should cut all of this out because now I'm embarrassed.
And now 7 lower Zephyrat. But now people will feel better because they were thinking the same thing. Wasn't Jesus in the desert or something for 7 days?
No, I don't think they were.
Oh, no, it wasn't Jesus.
Everybody's going to be like,
Moses?
oh, Savannah is stupid and doesn't listen to her own podcast.
Aaron? Was there an Aaron in the desert? Some guy. Biff? I don't know. Who was that desert guy?
We've talked about a lot of things on this podcast,
really
and I
have.
grew
No,
up
I
in a very
understand.
strictly atheist household, so I'm
least
trying
agnostic,
my
right?
best.
In 1569, he settled in Damascus to teach. He arrived before the death of Moses ben Jacob Cordovero, a prominent thinker on the Kabbalah, and ended up sort of like accidentally filling a void left by the loss of Cordovero. His school grew to a large congregation of followers who ultimately recorded and passed on his ideas. And now it's time for the ideas.
Joy.
The Ein Sof, or infinite. Part 1. Nothingness is the state in which the primeval one, who is the sole cause of all, in the words of David B. Abraham Halavan, who was writing in the 13th century, the primeval one would remain in equal oneness or unity without distinction in the depth of nothingness. It is the absolute reality in which there are no distinctions or differentiations. Ein Sof, that's what this term means. The absolute reality in which there are no distinctions or differentiations, and it is not possible to know of it in any direct way. So if you are struggling right now to know of it, that's okay.
Cool.
In classical Kabbalah, Ein Sof is different from the divine creator, with the free decision of Ein Sof to emerge into manifestation as an unanswerable mystery. So there's the version of God doing the creating and the version who is passively not.
So there's two gods.
Kind of.
But they're the same.
They're the same God. A core question in this mystery is whether the creative process was an act of will or intellect. Was creation willed into being or thought into being? In any case, the hidden God in Ein Sof and the manifested and emanating God were God viewed from different angles. So if we see God from one angle, God is the source of all being who sits in his infinitude or their infinitude, period. If we view God from another angle, God is emanating and creating, and things are coming off of the source God.
Mm-hmm.
But the two of them don't exactly jive, because one is passively occupying everything and the other one's doing stuff.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out the difference between willing something into being and thinking something into being. Because that to thinking seems also
will it.
willful.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't know. I have thoughts all the time that I'm just
That
like,
don't
I wish
result in action. Yeah.
Well, also just I wish I could stop thinking sometimes. So
Are we the thought of God or are we the act of God? Maybe is really the question.
Oh, okay.
The literal account of creation in the Pentateuch's Genesis is really a mystical allegory reflecting the process whereby the world was emanated into being. Emanation, in which the power to manifest proceeds from the hidden to the revealed, compares with the hidden thought made manifest in speech. Back to thinking. So a metaphor for this is the thought is Ein Sof. The speech is the creator God.
okay,
Okay.
It's all the same thing,
yeah,
but different angles. It was a significant problem in Kabbalah how to get from the emanator to that which is emanated, or from the source to creation. One solution was the 3 hidden lights which have no beginning. The 3 lights, or splendors, were described by Cordovero as the roots of the 3 upper Sephirot. The Sephirot then proceeded from the 3 to the 7, and then all the creatures below the Sephirot, which were independent of them but had their archetypes in the 10. So we go from the God emanates the lights, which form the 3 upper Sephirot, and then those emanate out the 7 lower Sephirot, and then we come after that.
okay.
So there's like a clear hierarchy of...
Everything's in a tree, a chain. For Azrael, things were created in a deliberate order, since creation was intentional and not accidental, and this order was called the Sephirot. But if the Sephirot manifested from God, who had 2 aspects as a concealed source and an emanation, then were the Sephirot themselves identical with God? And if they weren't, what was the difference between the Sephirot and God? We were sort of toying with this earlier.
Yeah.
Early Kabbalah held that for the most part the Sephirot were identical with God and were at most the means or instruments by which God did God's work. So they're kind of like an extension of God. They emanate in succession like one candle lighting another, but they do not leave the divine domain of God. It's all sort of the same flame. From the perspective of the Kabbalistic mystic or occultist, the Sephirot were like garments. In the words of the Genesis Rabbah, they were like the garment of the grasshopper, which is part of the insect itself, the exoskeleton. And by growing accustomed to observing one garment, the mystic can eventually look on to the next and on and on. So this is answering the question of, okay, so the Sephirot is a thing. What do we do with them? And the answer is we concentrate on each Sephirot. And when we have mastered and become accustomed to it, then we can move on to the next one, up and up.
I see.
Toward the contemplation of God.
Okay, but does that mean that there's a clear hierarchy then between the 7 and the 3?
Yes.
Okay.
In theory. I mean, there's a lot of commentary, right?
Yeah.
Back and forth. But
Because it feels like the 3 came together and the 7 came together, so why would any of those be easier to try and meditate on than the other? Do you see what I mean?
Because there's lower and higher, and they all climb up a ladder toward God.
So out of the 7, there's like a tier list.
Yes.
Okay.
With one closest to us and one closest to God.
Okay.
Yeah. And then all these between. So the doctrine of the Sephirot was the most significant concept separating Kabbalah from the main body of Jewish philosophy. The Sephirot were, here we go, Savannah, in order, on top, Keter, or the supreme crown, Chokhmah, or wisdom, Bina, or intelligence. Sometimes Bina and Chokhmah are like next to each other.
Or they can like switch.
But Keter is on the top. Gedula, or greatness, Hesed, or love, Gevura, power, Din, judgment, Tiferet, beauty. This one is also, depending on who you talk to, Rechamin, or compassion, Netzah, or endurance, Chad, or majesty, Zadik, the righteous one, or the foundation of the world, and Malchut, the kingdom. Bam, 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 bam. Images of the tree of the Sephirot first emerged in the 14th century and were accompanied by images of the Sephirot in the form of a man. These are the popular Kabbalistic images that I was talking about that you haven't seen.
Yeah.
They were also structured according to triangles. Or it's at the beginning of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Okay, there you go. You can see the tree of the Sephiroth. I'm pretty sure that's what the image is in the beginning. I skip it. So anime nerds out there, I'm watching my first anime, and it is Neon Genesis. And anyway, I'm sure that won't surprise any of you if you know what that is. They were also structured according to triangles. The three upper Sephiroth, Keter, Bina, and Chokmah, form the first triangle, then the next three below them, and the last four below them. So they're in these
like
sets.
triangle, triangle, square.
It's still a triangle, but with one in the middle.
I see.
Yeah. Okay. They could also be divided into 5 and 5, with the upper 5 mirroring the lower 5, or, as we've been talking about, 3 and then 7. Mm-hmm. They were also arranged into 3 lines or columns, which allowed Kabbalists to draw all sorts of conclusions about the way they're associated with each other, the pattern of their association. All Sephiroth were also believed to reflect all other Sephiroth in a kind of infinite process within themselves. Attempts to link them with the days of the week met with varying degrees of success and never reached any kind of agreement between writers. The 7 Sephiroth could also correlate to the heroes of the Bible: Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David, Moses, Aaron, Joseph. Study of the Baihanat, or infinite aspects of the Sephiroth, focused on how they proceeded from the previous Sephiroth in the sequence and led to the next one. They are the structural elements of all beings, and even of God himself, for Cordovero. They also convey God's light down to creation and reflect God's light back up to the source. So they're a throughway between God and us. They don't go one direction. They really go both.
Okay.
They're ordered, but communication or light or whatever,
through all of them,
back and forth. As far as creation is concerned, some Kabbalistic thinkers believe that there were failed or aborted worlds before ours. Here we go. The human had to be a perfect blend of the masculine and feminine. Now, this is really kind of true across the board. There needs to be a balance. Strict judgment is the masculine. The softening influence of the feminine is required to balance that strict judgment in order for humanity to survive. We're going to think about Adam in a minute, which will sort of help with this. But understand that humans have a kind of bi-genderness to us, which we've talked about on this show and I think is an accepted fact of gender these days. It doesn't mean that we're perfectly split between male and female, but there's
always
both.
A mix. Yeah.
Worlds were formed and destroyed for failing to achieve a proper balance, and these worlds ceased to be. However, they still could have a lingering influence on creation as it exists, depending on who you read. Some Kabbalists also predicted on the other side of this chain of events the apocalypse, the far end of creation. Abraham Bar Chaya said that the creation would last 49,000 years, with each of 7 planets ruling for 7,000 years, the number 7 again, very important. And then all would fall into chaos. God would destroy the universe and then raise the whole thing again. The year 50,000 was regarded as a jubilee, and some argued that we are forbidden to know what will happen after the jubilee, despite speculations from others. Kabbalists also disagreed about which era we were living in. Some believed we were in the era of din, or judgment, others that we were in the golden age of hesed, or love. Each era receives its own revelation of the Torah, which is a reflection of the Tetragrammaton. That is the fancy name that you can bring home with you for the divine name of God. The Tetragrammaton. Yod-He, Vav-He.
So they're suggesting that we're still in that cycle where, like, everything's going to go into chaos?
Eventually.
Okay.
We're working our way through the 50,000.
So, yeah, after 7,000 years.
We enter a new Sephiroth, essentially. And we're going to work our way through all of them until
God
the
decides.
End times. Yeah. God wipes it all clean and we do it again.
Oh, okay.
In theory. The origins of evil are sometimes tied to this cosmology as well. Evil and death exist to balance the positivity and goodness of God, or the divine. Pure judgment, without any balancing force, produced from within itself the other side. In the Zohar, there was a parallel hierarchy on this other or left-hand side to the hierarchy of the Sephirot. So there's like a dark Sephirot balancing out the light Sephirot.
And they both have to exist.
In theory. The Zohar, as well as other commentators, held that evil was born out of the aborted worlds that came and went before our creation. These worlds featured an overabundance of din, or judgment. Let me help you make sense of this. Adam's sin in the Garden of Eden is, in this view, the sin of separation. We have the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Before Adam eats of the fruit, these trees are joined together in a Kabbalistic concept. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is a symbol of judgment. The tree of life is a symbol of love, and love and judgment were married. Do you see how they balance each other?
Yeah.
You can judge someone, or you can love someone. If we only love, it's possible, I don't know, we get stepped on. If we only judge,
then we can never love.
Right. So we need to balance these things. Love and judgment had what's been joined in plucking the fruit from the tree of knowledge. Adam drew a separation between it and the tree of life, and so evil is born. Evil remained fairly abstract in the Zohar, except for Samael and Lilith. Samael is the Lucifer of Kabbalah, of Jewish tradition. He's the devil. Lilith is his wife. The Kalipa, and she, of course, I can't just say Lilith and move on.
Yeah.
She is, you know, this traditional demonic figure going back to early Judaism. So I think by the time we're in the medieval period, it's a kind of matter of convenience that she is just like, if we need a demoness, she's the handiest. I think that's, I guess that's how she ends up in this position.
She's the most popular. She's the most well-known.
Yeah. I don't want folks to get too far ahead of themselves on Lilith being the queen of hell. I think there's some people who just like get off on that a little too much. I really think it was just a matter of...
She was there.
She existed in the lore. We needed a feminine counterpart. And so, great, this one will do, more or less. You can argue with me. I'm not an expert on the medieval period. The Kalipat, or husks, are the last links between the upper and lower worlds of good and evil, respectively, but the material world is not entirely evil in Kabbalistic philosophy. Another way of looking at it is that everything that is created is good, but when it leaves its proper place, it becomes evil. Order is the solution to the problem of evil. A more recent development on the question came from Nathan of Gaza in the 17th century. He held that the first light was active and the second light passive. To remain passive, the second light had to resist the action of the first, which then gave birth to evil. So it's this push and pull between the origin, the passive origin. Like we're thinking again about Ein Sof, right? Of God just sort of sitting in his passiveness and nothing is happening. And that active impulse to do something. The passive impulse of God is going to pull back against the active impulse, and the tension breeds evil.
Okay.
Gotcha.
For some Kabbalists, in the end, evil would be subsumed into good. Like Hindu or Buddhist thought, they held that everything would eventually return to its source. Samael himself would repent and become an angel of holiness. We did it in our Lilith episode, a whole conversation about this, where Lilith is redeemed.
So he's the devil character in this is like an actual like being and not just like an abstract idea like the other.
Yes, Samael and Lilith they're embodied anyway in some sense. Yeah, they're entities of some kind.
Okay.
Ein Sof is too, to some extent. It's just quite abstract.
Yeah, because all the in the Z word.
Zohar.
No, the lights. The
Zephirah.
Zephyrah. I'm so sorry. So I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 again, and there's a group in it called the Zentrum, and I keep trying to call it that, and I'm not. It's not. So do
they have anything to do with Zephyrah?
No. It's just a similar name.
So the Zephirot aren't beings.
Not necessarily. No. They're extremely abstract.
Yeah, because
Lilith.
God itself is very abstract, and then the Zephyrat are very, very abstract. But then the devil is
The devil and Lilith are
not
real?
abstract.
They are named.
bodied?
I'm just going to say they are named.
Okay.
The degree to which they're the guys wandering around with horns and stuff is a little. I don't think that it would be great Kabbalistic thought to hold to that kind of idea.
Okay.
Even if it said it's not meant literally, because insofar as they don't ever mean anything literally.
Okay. I just think that's interesting that the other things feel more abstract than this devil character, but I guess he could also be.
It's a matter
abstract.
of convenience, yeah.
Okay.
I think it is ultimately more abstract. Others believe that a segment of evil would remain to sustain a place of eternal punishment for the damned. Isaac Luria took a different and more complex view of creation. For him, creation began in an act of contraction, or zimzum. Ein Sof was infinite, right, in the beginning, our source, leaving no space for creation. And so Ein Sof had to withdraw its light into itself to create a space of darkness wherein God could craft the universe.
That makes sense.
If God is everywhere and everything,
then he has to pull
where do we
in.
go?
Yeah.
God has to contract. A residue of Ein Sof remained in the form of vessels which could be expressed back out into creation. Adam Kadmon, or primordial man, is the first form that the emanation assumes after Zimzum. He is not a literal man, but the human shape taken by the 10 Sephirat in the form of concentric circles. Adam Kadmon is then the link between Ein Sof and the worlds to be formed. The light of God filled the vessels of the Sephirat. The upper 3 contained the light, but the lower 7 were struck, such that they broke, except the last Malkut, which cracked, but was not shattered as badly. From the shards, the Kelipot, or links to darkness, were formed. The shards were also the form for gross matter. This can also be read to mean that the presence of the roots of the Kelipot were the true cause for the breaking of the vessels. The breaking of the vessels caused all the worlds to shift lower than their proper place, and the spiritual world has become commingled with the world of the Kelipot, which is a problem. We got the evil world, the lower world, and the upper world. They're all mixed together. It's a disaster.
Ah.
Tikkun is then the process of cosmic restoration and reintegration and constitutes a major aspect of Lurianic Kabbalah. The details of this process are rendered in profoundly complex terms. Humans' role is to completely separate the spiritual from the Kelipot and the achievement of permanent union with God. All of these Lurianic systems have a kind of Gnostic feel to them, with a big crisis sitting at the center of creation and a heavy burden on humanity to restore things. Humans must be the agent through whom all the powers of creation are made manifest. This puts a different but similar frame on Adam's sin, with separation as a running theme. When Adam fell in the Garden of Eden, his free volition caused his lower will to split off from his divine will. It used to be that his wills were all harmonized. Mm-hmm. This ended his communion with God, and the goal of creation is to return to that. It's humanity's destiny, with the Jew as the chosen representative of God, to repair this separation. The soul originates on a plane higher than the angels, and since humans are capable of plunging to the depths of depravity, they must also have the capacity to rise above the angels. In Lurianic Kabbalah, Adam's sin was actually well-intentioned. He was in a hurry to achieve tikkun, to achieve this restoration, but it was not the appointed time, and this caused the break and separation that we've lived with ever since.
Oh, Adam, come on,
Come on,
man.
Adam.
Slow your roll, man.
Patience, man.
Slow your roll.
Now we gotta do all this bullshit.
You got
to
a
try and fix
podcast
it.
about it. Wait 7 years. The Torah in the
By a river.
walk in the desert for 7 days with Biff. The Torah occupies an important place in this system, especially the Pentateuch, or the first 5 books. The Torah has magical ability, back to the living Torah, in its pages. The Midrash Telehim argues that the chapters and verses of the Torah are not properly arranged. If they had been properly arranged, the reading of the Torah would have given readers the ability to work miracles and raise the dead.
Wow.
So we can't figure out the right order to put the words in. If we did, magic. The Torah can be read as an explication of the process of the creation of the Sephirot from Ein Sof, and also as an explication and commentary on the ineffable name of God. All this like deep, allegorical, mystical, symbolic reading of the text. The Torah is like Adam Kadmon and the Sephirot in that it has the shape of a human body with a head, a mouth, and a heart. It's also like the tree of life, in which the Sephirot are arranged with branches and roots. The Torah has literal, allegorical, and mystical meaning, as I'm saying, and will reveal different things to different readers at different times, no matter how many times it is read. We can study and study and study. It lost its true form at Adam's fall, but will assume that form again in the future. A hidden law is concealed on the pages of the text. The black letters of the scroll that we read are a commentary on this law hidden on the white parchment.
Oh my God.
I told you it's a little. We're almost out. We're almost out. You've almost made it. Devakut is the supreme rank attainable by the soul on its journey back to its native home in the Godhead. So we're all trying to hit Devakut. We want Tikkun, we want to get restored, and that's trying to climb to Devakut. For De Leon in the Zohar, fear is paramount in the worship of God, pure, sublime fear. This is not the fear of punishment so much as it is fear of the awesome power of God. For Nabonidus, Devakut is the state of mind wherein a person constantly remembers God, and his love is never removed from the thought of God, even when you're like, just hanging out.
They want us to be afraid of God,
Sublimely fearful of the awesome power of God.
but also love him.
Yes.
I mean, that goes back to that whole twisting judgment and love together.
Love, fear. It's the combination, ultimately. Yeah. I mean, there's a bit of discrepancy over whether we love first or fear, Anyway. The path to Devakut often involves kavanah, or directed mystical intention, a concentration on the deeper significance of every action. Medieval Kabbalah prescribed focus on the Sephirot, whereas Lurianic Kabbalah in the Renaissance had believers focus on the mystical name of God, which is not called upon, but focused on meditatively. There are 4 phases in this kind of prayer: the tikkun of the practitioner, the tikkun of the lower world, the tikkun of the upper world, and the tikkun of the divine name. The concept of ecstasy as a result of Kabbalistic activity wasn't a feature of the Zohar so much as later Lurianic Kabbalah. Focus on various combinations of letters and numbers empties the mind of anything that might prevent concentration on divine things. Techniques to achieve spiritual ecstasy include breathing exercises, repetition of the divine name, meditation on colors, etc. Ecstasis can also involve identification with a spiritual mentor or guru, which is either Metatron, the angel of God's face. Sometimes Metatron is regarded as God's voice, or the subject's true inner self. To conclude. You ready to conclude?
I think I am.
I know that I sort of like dumped all this
Yeah.
heavy magic, mystical stuff. But now let's do magic. It was all mystical stuff. Now let's do magic. We'll take a look at the magical or practical side of Kabbalah, for which it is perhaps most famous. So we have done, what have we done? Like an hour of Kabbalah here. And only now am I doing the magic. Because Kabbalah really isn't the magic, it's the mysticism, in my opinion. There is some magic to it, but that's a little bit like, I don't know. It's looking at the surface level of things and missing everything underneath.
I mean, it's like, yeah, Jesus performed miracles, but like we're more interested in what he was talking about.
Paganism, right? All these religions, like they're generally like reduced down to their stereotype, and in this case, I think it's the magical side, which exists, but we're doing it in a couple minutes here. Strictly speaking, Kabbalah is a kind of white magic practiced through the medium of the sacred names of God or God's angels. I should say, and God's angels. Only the most virtuous practitioners are able to undertake this. And even then, they can't do this white magic for personal advantage, only for the good of others or for the community. Much of what we consider Kabbalistic magic today is in fact the collection of all Judaic magical practices from the 6th century through the medieval period. The title Master of the Name dates back to the Geonic period, and it was assigned to a master of practical magic capable of creating amulets for various applications. And the important point here is like Geonic period is 6th century. Isaac the Blind is not till the medieval period. We're taking like 400 or 500 years of Jewish lore, tradition, and practice and just like calling it Kabbalah, because Kabbalah is now the most famous occult association. But in fact, it far predates Kabbalah and is unrelated really to the philosophy. Or not directly anyway. The Hasidai Ashkenaz did most of the collecting, by the way, of these practices and put them all in written volumes. Black magic enters Kabbalistic lore through this channel, but also through practitioners who overstepped or blurred the boundaries set in Kabbalistic treatises. So two routes, right? Either there was, black magic happening in this period of, magical lore between the 6th century and the medieval period, and it just sort of like got lumped under the brand Kabbalah. Or there were people practicing who, read that they weren't really supposed to do this, but they figured, let's give it a shot anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. White magic was often used to produce amulets and charms for protection using angelic names and powers. But these practices bled into the invocation of demonic entities using formulas for personal gain, including sexual magic, and necromancy. Amulets were often created using the archangelic alphabet, the earliest of which was the alphabet of Metatron. These characters were called eye writing for their combination of circles and lines, which often looked like eyes. Practical Kabbalah led to the false belief that Jewish people were all sorcerers, and books like Solomon's Key and the Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin were falsely attributed to Jewish sources. The Scarlet Thread, that became popular among Hollywood performers in the late 1990s, is another example of a magical practice to ward off the evil eye that was attributed to Kabbalah, but was more likely a broad Jewish folk custom that was falsely attributed to Kabbalistic sources. Modern celebrities became acquainted with Kabbalah through the Kabbalah Center in Los Angeles. I think it was originally a New York thing. It came over to Los Angeles. The phenomenon was rooted in the late 1990s and early 2000s, where it more or less remains. The list of celebrities associated with the center include such 90s luminaries and early 2000s luminaries as Britney Spears, Roseanne Barr, Rosie O'Donnell, remember her talk show? Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie, remember their reality show? And Lindsay Lohan, remember those couple of movies she made with Disney? Its most stalwart adherent is probably Madonna Ciccone. That is her last name. Or Ciccone. Madonna probably introduced it to Britney, and it sort of like went from there.
Right.
But Madonna seems to have maintained a long-standing relationship with Kabbalah. She never gave it up. It wasn't a fad for her. And Madonna was still involved with the center at least in 2011. So maybe today she still is too. A fairly cursory glimpse at the center suggests that it provides a popular rather than scholarly or complex approach to Kabbalah that we're discussing. Although who's to say? I mean, I didn't go there. I read their Wikipedia page. It's also worth noting for any listeners who might be interested in the center that a couple of donors have sued them for misuse of donated funds. But Madonna still seems to think they're okay. So there you go. The truth is always somewhere in the middle, right? But that's it. That's Madonna pop culture, Kabbalah, and probably, for people my age, that's the association we have with Kabbalah is when Britney wore the little red string around her wrist and Madonna back in the 2000s. So, final thoughts.
What?
But you got it, right?
Yeah.
You got the gist.
I think so.
Yeah.
I feel very tired right now.
I've tired you further.
I have.
It's been a big experience.
Yeah.
Would you Kabbalah?
But I don't even know. I think that's where I am with this is like you've given me a lot of information, but I don't understand how to practice
what you would actually do.
What do you do in Kabbalah?
Get it. Now you get it. You understand.
So just understanding Kabbalah is the practice of...
If you don't know how to practice it, I think you've definitely arrived at Kabbalah. I think so much of what this is really study. On the mystery, the unanswerable, the ineffable.
Oh, God.
That is where we live. So if you can't quite picture how this manifests in the world, then you're doing it right.
I mean, that goes back to Druidism. Mm-hmm. A lot of Neo-Druid practice is just studying.
Yes. Yep. You just think about God a lot and how complex it all is. and you're overwhelmed, and you've arrived.
You're there.
I've been doing it this entire episode.
You've achieved ecstasis. Be careful. You live through this. You better look in a mirror real fast. I hereby adjourn and declare closed this meeting of the Secret Order of Alchemical Actors until such a time as we get together and do it again. Yes, I did it. Kabbalah. 1 hour of Kabbalah. That's all you're getting. Don't ask me for more. It's over.
We're done.
It's a heavy lift, right?
Yeah.
Now all you at home are like, Rob, what are you talking about? Kabbalah is not that tough. It's pretty tough. We've covered tough subjects. We've done quantum physics and we've done, some deeper end occulty practices, but Kabbalah, it is very abstract.
Yeah, it's a lot of effort for your mind to sit there and think about the unanswerable questions and come up with answers for them.
Yep. Answer the unanswerable.
Yeah.
And your answer is inadequate.
It's exhausting.
By its very nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that maybe that's going to keep happening for us. We are in a mystical place. We're in the medieval period. We are hanging out with the medieval mystics. This series, it is my intention to come back to you with some of the Christian medieval mystics. Folks who approached God via the via negativa or cloud of unknowing, and folks who took a more positive approach, which is we're not saying good or bad or happy or sad, but just how we conceptualize God. Anyhow, not our problem today, a problem for tomorrow, here on Occult Confessions. Sweet.